What if an engine was so powerful they had to erase it from a rule book? What if an idea was so brilliant its only crime was working too well? From secret weapons that won just once to revolutions that changed racing forever, we're uncovering the genius that was simply too good to last. This is a countdown of the top 10 banned racing innovations that actually worked. 1. The Chrysler 426 Hemi engine was banned from NASCAR competition after the 1964 season. Officials moved quickly to outlaw it for one reason: its performance was too dominant. The official justification was that it violated NASCAR's strictly stock rules, as it was not a regular production option available to the public. In reality, it was banned for winning too convincingly and threatening the competitive balance of the sport. This ban was a direct reaction to its debut at the 1964 Daytona 500. In that race, a Hemi-powered Plymouth, driven by Richard Petty, achieved a staggering victory. Petty didn't just win, he dominated, leading 184 of 200 laps and finishing a full lap ahead of the second-place car. Hemi engines powered the top three finishers, demonstrating an overwhelming advantage that left other manufacturers unable to compete. In protest of the ban, Chrysler pulled its factory teams out of NASCAR for the entire 1965 season. To get back into the sport, Chrysler was forced to create a street-legal version of the engine for public sale. This street Hemi debuted in 1966 models, satisfying NASCAR's production rule and allowing the engine's return. It promptly won the 1966 Daytona 500, cementing its legendary status as an innovation that was literally too good to be allowed. 2. The high-mounted wings that appeared on Formula One cars in 1968 and 1969 were banned with immediate effect following the Spanish Grand Prix in May of 1969. The sport's governing body, the CSI, Commission Sport of International, instituted an emergency ban because these wings, mounted on tall, spindly struts connected directly to suspension, were failing catastrophically at high speed, causing terrifying and dangerous crashes. The danger was inherent to the design. To maximize downforce, teams mounted the wings as high as possible to catch clean air. However, to save weight and in the absence of clear rules, they were often attached with frail supports to the unsprung suspension. This exposed the structures to immense stress and vibration. A failure meant an instant and total loss of downforce on one end of the car, making it uncontrollable. Driver Johan Rindt, who survived such a failure, later wrote that when a wing broke, its downforce would reverse, making the back end of the car start flying. The ban was triggered by dramatic, near-identical crashes during the 1969 Spanish Grand Prix at the Montjuic circuit. First, Graham Hill's Lotus lost its rear wing cresting a hill, sending him into a massive crash. Just 11 laps later, while leading the race, his teammate Johan Rindt suffered an identical failure at the exact same spot at approximately 140 miles per hour. Rindt's car was launched, clipped Hill's wrecked car, and flipped over. He was fortunate to escape with a broken nose and skull fractures. The response was swift. By the next race in Monaco, the CSI enforced a new rule. Aerodynamic devices had to be rigidly fixed to the chassis, not the suspension, and their height and width were strictly controlled. This marked the abrupt end of the high wing era. While the pursuit of downforce continued, it was now forced into a safer, more regulated framework. 3. The NASCAR winged warriors, most famously the 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona and 1970 Plymouth Superbird, were never officially banned. Instead, they were strategically regulated into obsolescence after a single, spectacularly dominant season. For the 1971 season, NASCAR introduced a new rule that limited cars with radical aerodynamic modifications to a maximum engine displacement of just 305 cubic inches. This was a death sentence for the Mopar monsters and their Ford counterparts, which were built around the colossal power of 426 and 429 cubic inch engines. Effectively, NASCAR didn't ban the cars, they banned the immense horsepower that made them unbeatable, forcing every competitive team to abandon them overnight. These aero warriors were born from a factory arms race to conquer NASCAR's high-speed superspeedways. The goal was simple: reduce aerodynamic drag and increase downforce. The solution was radical, featuring elongated nose cones and towering rear wings. The results were immediate and staggering. The Dodge Charger Daytona famously became the first stock car to break 200 miles per hour on a closed track. In the 1970 season, these aerodynamic marvels, primarily from Chrysler, utterly dominated the competition, winning the vast majority of races, including the Daytona 500, and sweeping the championship. Their speed advantage was so pronounced that it reduced competition and sparked serious safety concerns as speed soared beyond 200 miles per hour. The rule change from 1971 was surgically precise and devastating. By restricting only the aero cars to the small 305 cubic inch engines, NASCAR made them completely non-competitive against standard body cars that could still run engines nearly 50% larger. One historical account noted that a team did attempt to race a Daytona with a small engine at the 1971 Daytona 500. It managed to qualify and even lead laps, proving the aerodynamic design still worked, but lacked the power to seriously contend for the win. After that race, NASCAR officials reportedly told the team not to bring the car to the next superspeedway event, quietly ending the era. Faced with this impossible handicap, manufacturers and teams had no choice but to retire their wing fleets. NASCAR's decision was driven by more than just one manufacturer's dominance. It was a multifaceted effort to regain control of the sport's direction. Safety was a paramount concern, as speeds had dangerously outpaced safety technology of the time. The sanctioning body also sought to reduce the exorbitant cost of the aero wars, level the playing field for smaller teams, and lure General Motors, which had no aero car, back to full-time competition. Most importantly, as legend Richard Petty explained, Bill France Sr. felt Detroit was controlling NASCAR with constant, exotic innovations. By clipping the wings of the aero warriors, France reasserted that NASCAR, not the manufacturers, would dictate the rules of its stock car racing series. For the ground effect technology pioneered by the Lotus 79 Formula One car, specifically its sliding side skirts, was banned for the 1981 season after being declared an illegal movable aerodynamic device. The official reason for the ban was a technicality in the regulations, but the true urgent motivation was safety. If the fragile seal created by the skirts was broken, the car would instantly lose all its downforce, leading to violent and unpredictable crashes. The revolutionary system worked by using the car's entire underbody as an inverted wing. The sliding skirts, made from a material like plywood or plastic, sealed the sides of the car against the track surface. As the car moved, air was accelerated through narrow venturi tunnels underneath, creating a powerful low-pressure area that sucked the vehicle to the road. This ground effect generated far more efficient downforce than traditional wings, allowing for previously unimaginable cornering speeds. The Lotus 79, driven by Mario Andretti, used this advantage to dominate the 1978 season and win the World Championship. However, the system had a fatal flaw: its dependence on a perfect seal. If a car hit a bump, curb, or debris, the skirt could be damaged or lifted, breaking the vacuum. The result was an instantaneous and total loss of downforce on that end of the car. Drivers reported the car would just let go with no warning, often sending them into a high-speed spin or off the track. This danger was tragically demonstrated when driver Patrick DePaler was killed during testing in 1980 after his Alfa Romeo's ground effect system failed at the Hockenheimring. By the 1981 season, after other teams had developed their own, even more extreme ground effect cars, the FIA acted. Citing the skirts as movable aerodynamic parts, they banned them outright. A new rule required a fixed ground clearance of 6 centimeters, about 2.4 inches, destroying the seal needed for the system to work and effectively ending the ground effect era overnight in the name of driver safety. I hope this provides a clear and dramatic hook for your video segment. To continue with the next innovation on your list, such as the Tyrrell P34 six-wheeler or the Indy turbine cars, please let me know which one you'd like to cover next. 5. The six-wheeled Tyrrell P34 Formula One car was ultimately made obsolete by a new technical regulation introduced in the 1983 season, which mandated that all cars must have no less than 4 wheels. This rule was introduced as several other teams, inspired by Tyrrell's brief success, began developing their own 6-wheel concepts. The regulation formally closed a fascinating but short-lived chapter of innovation, ensuring Formula One cars would have four wheels from that point forward. The radical concept was born from designer Derek Gardner's quest for an aerodynamic advantage. By using four small 10-inch front wheels, the car's front tires could be entirely covered by streamlined bodywork. This significantly reduced aerodynamic drag and front-end lift compared to conventional cars with their exposed, larger front wheels. The layout also provided more frontal brake area, promising superior stopping power. For a sport where gains are measured in hundredths of a second, the theory was compelling enough for team owner Ken Tyrrell to greenlight the project. The P34 proved its potential dramatically during the 1976 season. The car achieved its crowning moment at the Swedish Grand Prix, where drivers Jody Scheckter and Patrick DePaler scored a stunning 1-2 victory. Over the season, it secured several podiums and proved to be a competitive machine. However, its fundamental weakness was its dependency on a special tire. As the sole supplier, Goodyear was reluctant to dedicate equal development resources to the unique, small-diameter front tires for just one team. While standard tires improved for the rest of the grid, the P34 special front stagnated, eroding its initial advantage. Faced with this developmental dead end, the P34 became uncompetitive by 1977 and was retired. The 1983 rule that formally ended six-wheeled experiments was less a direct ban on the Tyrrell and more a preventative measure against a potential future where multiple teams ran complex six-wheel designs. The rule solidified a conventional engineering path for sport, ending a bold experiment that was first hobbled by practical obstacles and finally rendered illegal by the rulebook. 6. The turbine-powered Indy cars were effectively banned from competition after the 1968 season through a series of targeted regulations that made them uncompetitive. The governing body, the United States Auto Club, USAC, drastically reduced the permitted size of the turbine's air intake, crippling its power output. While official reasons included safety and competition balance, the underlying truth was that the racing establishment felt threatened. The quiet, jet-like technology from the aviation industry risked making traditional, roaring piston engines, and the entire ecosystem of builders and mechanics who supported them instantly obsolete. The ban was a direct response to the turbine car's terrifying dominance. In their 1967 debut, the STP Paxton turbo car, driven by Parnelli Jones, shattered expectations. Jones took the lead almost immediately and built a massive lead, only to suffer a heartbreaking transmission bearing failure, with just 3 laps remaining while leading the race. The following year, Andy Granatelli partnered with Lotus to create the even more advanced wedge-shaped Lotus 56. In 1968, these cars qualified on the pole and again commanded the race, only to fail with victory in sight, this time due to a fuel pump issue. Coming within laps of winning twice in 2 years proved the concept was no fluke, but a genuine threat. The technology was revolutionary and alien to the Indy paddock. These cars used modified Pratt & Whitney aircraft turbine engines, which were lighter and mechanically simpler than piston engines, producing smooth, relentless power delivered to all 4 wheels through a single-speed transmission. They didn't roar. They produced a distinctive, eerie whoosh that unsettled traditionalists. The cars also featured innovative aerodynamic designs and handling characteristics that left conventional competitors struggling to keep pace, demonstrating a total rethinking of racing car design. Faced with this existential challenge to the status quo, USAC took decisive action to protect the traditional order of Indy car racing. After the 1968 race, the governing body further slashed the air intake rules, reducing the turbines to a fraction of their potential. Combined with new rules against four-wheel drive systems, this regulatory clampdown strangled the turbine's competitiveness overnight. The cars vanished from the grid as quickly as they had appeared, ending one of the most dramatic and innovative chapters in Indianapolis 500 history, not because the technology failed, but because it worked too well. 7. The Brabham BT46B fan car was voluntarily withdrawn from Formula One competition by its own team after winning its first and only race at the 1978 Swedish Grand Prix. This withdrawal was not due to an official ban, but resulted from intense political pressure from rival teams, particularly Lotus, who argued it violated the spirit of the rules. Brabham's owner, Bernie Ecclestone, was also the head of the Formula One Constructors Association, FOCA. Faced with threats that the controversy could fracture the organization crucial to his growing power in the sport, Ecclestone chose to withdraw the car to maintain political peace. The car's dominance made it a target. At the Swedish Grand Prix, Niki Lauda won the race with embarrassing ease, finishing over 30 seconds ahead of the field. This was after the team had deliberately sandbagged, in qualifying by running with full fuel tanks to hide the car's true pace. Rivals were furious, lodging immediate protests and later claiming the fan was dangerous, throwing debris at following cars, a tactic that worked to ban a similar car in sports car racing years earlier. The genius of the car was its clever exploitation of a regulatory loophole. Designed by Gordon Murray, the BT46B featured a large, engine-driven fan at the rear. Officially, its primary purpose was to cool the car's radiator, which was technically true as over 55% of its airflow served that function. This design cleverly skirted the rule against movable aerodynamic devices, as the rules allowed them if their primary function was non-aerodynamic. In reality, the fan's main job was to suck air from under the sealed chassis, creating immense downforce that glued the car to the track, even at low speeds. The legacy of the fan car is one of a brilliant but politically doomed innovation. The FIA never officially banned the 1978 car, which remains legal for that season, but the rules were clarified for 1979 to prevent any similar designs. Murray had already begun designing a more advanced, second-generation fan car, the Brabham BT47, but it was never built due to the new regulations. As a result, the Brabham BT46B retired with a perfect 100% win record, remembered not for a failure of engineering, but as a masterstroke that was too successful for the political landscape of its time. 8. The Chaparral 2J Sucker Car was officially banned from the Can-Am series after the 1970 season for violating rules against movable aerodynamic devices, specifically targeting the flexible skirts that sealed its revolutionary ground effect system. This ruling came not because the car was unreliable, which it was, but because its potential was so terrifyingly superior that rival teams, led by the dominant McLaren squad, lobbied furiously for its removal. The 2J's genius was its active vacuum system, driven by a separate two-stroke engine. Two massive fans at the rear literally sucked the air from beneath the car, creating a partial vacuum that pulled at the track with immense downforce. Crucially, this downforce worked at any speed, unlike traditional wings. Sealing this vacuum were articulated skirts made of Lexan polycarbonate, which automatically maintained a near-perfect 1-inch gap from the road surface, following every bump and dip on track. Its advantage was immediate and shocking. In qualifying, it was routinely 2 seconds or more per lap faster than the next best car. Drivers like Jackie Stewart and Vic Elfer were astounded by its cornering grip, with Stewart noting its ability to take unorthodox lines through turns was something he'd never experienced. Despite chronic mechanical failures with its experimental systems that prevented a race win, its sheer pace in practice and qualifying was a clear promise of future dominance. Faced with this existential threat, competitors protested. They argued the skirts were illegal movable aerodynamics and complained the fans hurled dangerous debris. The sanctioning body, which had initially approved the car, yielded to pressure. As designer Jim Hall famously stated, "If I can come up with a better mousetrap that is within the regulations, I ought to be allowed to use it." The 2J proved his mousetrap was too effective, and it was outlawed after just one season, ending one of racing's boldest experiments. 9. The Lotus 88 was banned before it could start a single Formula One race in 1981, deemed an illegal movable aerodynamic device by the sport's governing body, the FIA. The ruling followed intense protests from rival teams, most notably Ferrari and Williams, who argued its revolutionary twin-chassis design violated the spirit of the rules. This made the Lotus 88 the ultimate example of a car banned not for breaking a clear regulation, but for being so conceptually superior that it threatened to render the entire grid obsolete before the season even began. Its innovation was a direct response to a new rule that banned the sliding skirts used in ground effect cars. Designer Colin Chapman's solution was to build two separate chassis. The inner, structural chassis held the driver and engine and moved with the suspension. A second outer aero chassis carried the side pods and wings and was designed to remain rigid and at a constant height. The two were connected by soft springs. This clever system aimed to maintain perfect ground effect downforce in the side pods while allowing the mechanical suspension to work independently for ride comfort and mechanical grip, solving the fundamental conflict between aerodynamic stability and bump absorption. In pre-season testing, the car's potential was immediately terrifying competitors. Lotus test driver Nigel Mansell found it significantly faster than the conventional Lotus 81. Reports suggested it was up to 2 seconds per lap quicker, a massive margin in Formula One. The car's ability to generate consistent downforce regardless of track bumps or car movement was its key advantage, promising a level of performance other teams could not match with their conventional single-chassis designs. Despite the ban, team founder Colin Chapman defiantly attempted to race the car at the 1981 British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Officials, however, enforced the ban on the spot, and the car was physically pushed off the grid. The Lotus 88 remains one of Formula One's greatest what-if machines, a masterpiece of engineering that was never allowed to compete, cementing its legend as a car that was simply too innovative for its own time. 10. The Formula One turbo era was definitively ended by a ban that took full effect in 1989, a direct response to engines whose power outputs had soared past 1,400 horsepower, spiraling development costs that threatened to bankrupt teams, and legitimate fears for driver safety as speeds reached unprecedented levels. The governing body, FISA, mandated a return to naturally aspirated 3.5-liter engines, closing a chapter defined by some of the most powerful and technically extreme engines ever built. The revolution began not with dominance, but with ridicule. Renault introduced the first turbocharged 1.5-liter V6 in 1977, a car nicknamed the Yellow Teapot for its fragility and tendency to billow smoke. However, the fundamental advantage was clear. A turbocharger could force far more air and fuel into the engine, creating more power from a smaller, lighter unit. By the early 1980s, the horsepower race had ignited. BMW, Ferrari, Honda, and Porsche joined the fray, with BMW's four-cylinder engine famously producing around 1,400 horsepower in qualifying boost mode, a setting so extreme it often destroyed the engine after a single lap. This escalation created a perfect storm of problems. The financial cost was staggering, with manufacturers like Honda rumored to build a new engine for every session. The human cost was a constant edge of danger. Cars became violently unpredictable, with massive turbo lag, followed by an overwhelming surge of power that could snap a car into a spin. The quest for ultimate power led to exotic, highly volatile fuel blends. The spectacle reached its peak and its precipice in 1986, a season of incredible power and tragic loss. Faced with this unsustainable direction, FISA enacted a phased ban. For 1987, boost pressure was limited and fuel tank capacity reduced. The final blow came for 1989. Turbochargers were outlawed in favor of naturally aspirated engines. The ban succeeded in curtailing costs and taming speeds, but the turbo's legacy was indelible. It had transformed F1 from a mechanic sport into a manufacturer's technocracy, proving that sometimes an innovation's very success is the reason it cannot be allowed to last.